FBI has done extensive research on basically every active shooter situation. The FBI conducted one study that looked at over 160 active shooter incidents from 2000 to 2013. I've actually read this. It's really fascinating. It includes the tragedies of Sandy Hook and Fort Hood, Texas, and former FBI Special Agent Katherine Schweit joins me now. She co-authored that study. She once led the FBI's active shooter initiative. Kate, thanks so much for joining us. I'm so happy to actually talk to you because that study is so fascinating and all the details in it. I mean, most of these active shooter situations are over within 5 minutes. Most of the people get killed or killed in those first minutes, according to your study, and that's why police response time is so critical and police strategy has changed.
Absolutely. Police strategy has changed because we wanted to make sure that police officers knew how to go in, and initially after Columbine there was always this concern that maybe they were grouping up and having to get a team together. We needed to change that, so law enforcement made that change, but they were still working on getting 2 or 3 people together in order to, before they go in to find the assault and find the shooter. They don't do that anymore. Police officers are there right now. It's not a coincidence that those police officers were in the right place at the right time in these 2 shootings.
Yeah, I remember looking at videos of the Navy Yard shooting for a story I did on 60 Minutes, and the first police officers who went in, I mean, it was a mix. One was a bicycle police officer,
yeah.
One was, I think, a Navy MP. So it was just whoever was on site first. They all just quickly teamed up and went in, and that, made a big difference, and that's the difference in many cases between life and death. I think a lot of people think that these shooters just snap and that they pick up their gun and go in and do this. That's not what you found.
No, absolutely. One of the things that I think is a very common misconception is this idea of snapping, and it isn't that. This type of violence we know is planned. It's a planned and prepared violence. Somebody is a kind of a grievance collector is a term that's often used. It's a person who has a real or perceived grievance. It may be because of work, it may be because of a spouse, it may be because they don't like the way some television show or newspaper portrays something. So you can't necessarily say and get your fingers on exactly what it is, but they're more brittle, and that they start to collect and they get more obsessed about that particular grievance, and they plan and prepare. So first they get an idea, then they plan and prepare, and the planning and preparing is where we can see people intercede.
It also seems now increasingly we're seeing white nationalist-related shooters, but who are writing, whether it's an actual manifesto, that seems a little bit too fancy a word for some of these like racist screeds that we're seeing posted. But it seems like they are sending a message to each other to kind of it's like a continued conversation. One references the other.
Well, somebody who's working on this idea of targeted violence, where you're an ideologue, like a white supremacist, isn't any different than somebody who is supporting Al Qaeda, or somebody where we were investigating from an espionage standpoint. These are people who believe in their cause, and they want other people to know how they believe in their cause and how strongly they believe in it, and what they're willing to do to prove, even if they just have control for those moments of the shooting. And you mentioned before about the shootings being so quick. 70% of them maybe 5 minutes or less, but in fact half of those are in 2 minutes or less. So it's also important that civilians understand what to do, which is why, as part of the whole, we need to train police better and push that forward. We also need to train civilians better. We need to get them to all be trained in run, hide, fight. We need to get them to understand how to put on a tourniquet and stop bleeding, the Stop the Bleed program. So those are equally important.